Good evening, everyone. My name is Vikas Pota, and I am today in London, like I have been for the last 6, 7, 8 months. There's been no travel, no movement. And I've taken the opportunity of speaking to friends from all over the world who are engaged in the world of education and have these conversations using this medium to share all the great things that are happening around the world, which I think is fantastically important in these very challenging times. And for that reason, I am today delighted that I bring to you two friends of mine from Africa who I would consider to be the next generation of education leaders and change makers. When I say the next generation, I do not mean in the future. I mean they already are today, and I want to actually bring them forward so that we can ask them about the status of education in Africa, especially during the pandemic, and also learn from them what their observations are today. So please welcome Yukabeth and Vongai. Yukabeth is the CEO of Teach for Kenya, and Vongai is the Executive Director for Africa for the Teach for All network. Ladies, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vikas, for having us. Thank you.
Wonderful. So Vongai, I want to come to you first, right? So you have this role of being the Executive Director of the whole continent for Teach for All, which is a fantastically large landscape. With many countries. Before we start, so that everyone understands, tell everyone what Teach for All is and what your mandate is.
Okay, thank you so much, because that's a great question. So Teach for All is a global network of independent organizations in over 58 countries whose sole mission is to ensure that every child has got quality education regardless of their socio-economic background. Our focus and emphasis is on the leadership piece, but one of the things we do is that if each country is independent, and by that, with a core mission, by that being independent boards, and they also work independently from the government, but work closely with the government.
And so when you think about Teach for All, tell us about how many countries have a Teach for All subsidiary or partner organization in country.
So currently, there are 58 countries where the Teach for All network is, and we have got more than 30 countries across the world who are looking to have a Teach for All, set up a Teach for All organization.
So there's a lot of demand for what you do. And tell me in Africa, Vongai, in particular, because I now serve on the on your Africa Council, and I'm always amazed with the kind of figures that you tell us and share with us. Tell us about the excitement that you have about how many partners in what span of time Teach for All has in Africa.
Yeah, so 3 years ago, we only were in 3 African countries, and prior to that, before establishing in Africa, we were told that you cannot find some of the most promising graduates and who would want to invest 2 years of their lives in some of the highest need schools. Because growing up, you would be told that if you don't work so hard, you become a teacher. But when we started, it started in Ghana, and now there's Lead for Ghana. And right now, as of today, we announced the launch of Teach the Nation, which is in South Africa. There's been thousands and thousands of applications. In Nigeria alone, for example, there are over 151,000 applications, people who wanted to become part of this movement. And right now, the Teach for All programs are in Ghana, Uganda, Nigeria, Tanzania, Liberia, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Sierra Leone. I'm bound to forget one. Tanzania, I think I've mentioned it. Hopefully those are 10 countries, and we're still growing as a network.
And I know that Yukabeth is one of your newest ventures in terms of Kenya is a fantastically young organization led by a dynamo like Yukabeth. Yukabeth, can I ask you the question as to what prompted you to start up Teach for Kenya?
Yeah, I think when Vongai was speaking about, talking about how there's so much demand and there's so much need on the African continent for this program, I think young people and young Africans are looking to be part of a change process that is bigger than themselves. For me, it was a mixture of the experiences I'd gone through, but also the conversations I'd had with a lot of people my age who were looking for programs and were looking for ways in which they could contribute positively to the development of their country, they could launch a career of impact and purpose right in their home country, and also at the same time be developing their leadership capacity. So when I graduated from college, I found such an opportunity outside of my country. And when I came in contact with the Teach for All network, it was my opportunity to ensure that when young people like me graduated from college, they were able to find an opportunity that would allow them to launch a career of impact and purpose right within our home country of Kenya.
And so when I think about what you do, and it's a criticism that is often leveled on Teach for All and all of your networks about, well, governments and ministries of education already invest heavily in teacher recruitment, teacher training, leadership development. Where is the need for a Teach for Kenya, as an example? Would you want to tackle that? And Vongai, maybe you can also weigh in on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say, the problem that we're trying to tackle is bridging the gap in education inequality. And this is a huge problem that has multiple layers to it. And if we're ever going to tackle this problem in a smart way and one day really say that every child in the world has quality education, we need very many more local leaders and international leaders working in collaboration together. So we need so many people thinking about this problem and working at different levels in community to provide solutions to it. So I would say for us, I want to focus that we are not, here to provide teachers. The Teach for Kenya program is a leadership development program that is aimed at building a catalytic leadership force for our country that will one day go out there and take on influential positions within and without the education system, but driving towards one purpose of ensuring that one day every Kenyan child will be able to access and take advantage of quality education opportunities.
And so, Vongai, when you see the landscape in Africa, what are some of the biggest challenges that you observe in education in Africa? And I know it's a massive continent, and you to a degree we will generalize. Yes. But can you tell us a little bit about what you see from your vantage position?
Yeah, I think from where I'm sitting, there are so many challenges, but if I name a few, one is around not enough funding. In most countries I've visited on the continent, there are huge resources are put elsewhere apart from the education agenda. And then two, depending on who's in politics, the education agenda might be up or down depending on who's in charge and who's the Minister of Education. Another one is the quality of teachers. I think recently in Nigeria, there was like a test for in Kaduna State, and 25,000 teachers went through this exam. It was a standard 3 grade, and only 23,000 failed that exam. And in addition to that, in Tanzania recently, when we went to one of the states called Magu region, most of the teachers we spoke for had only done up to O levels. So really, when we look at some of the quality of people who end up being in teaching classrooms, you think, wow, this is one of the challenges, again, that is facing the education agenda. So before COVID, the observations showed that we were not doing well, and all these challenges were in your face. So if there's a time when it's more important for us to scale our work, is now, and we can only do this in partnership with key stakeholders such as the government and others. And I know you asked Yukabeth the question around people think there's already an investment in education in Africa, and why would we need an organization like Teach For in different countries? And I think I want to echo the response that Yukabeth has said, that for us, this is not about a teacher training program, it's about leadership. Because when I look at all those challenges that I've just shared with you now, we've found that the common denominator is leadership. It's like watching the same movie again and again. And when we talk about this leadership, it's across different ranges from like all levels, whether like from very lower level to upper level, however you might want to classify it. So for us, it's about education. We must develop the students on many levels, galvanizing future promising leaders, like what Yukabeth has said, and this is why we need an organization like Teach For All. And when we think about the issue of underinvestment, would imagine if we had a leader who understands the root causes, who understands not just deal with the symptoms. I think most of the challenges we are facing in Africa will be a thing of the past.
And I think it's also one of the criticisms that comes through, Vongai, is about how teach subsidiaries actually get the cost of actually delivery of leaders or leadership development programs is often outstrips what the state pays for its own school leaders. And so how do you counter that?
Yeah, one thing that I wanted to classify, that the organizations in the countries, they are not subsidiaries, they are network partners, like I said, who are independent. And then you cannot put a cost to the quality of leaders that come the other side of the fence, because right now, because we are attracting some of the most promising leaders from across different angles, for us, you know what, if we're to put a monetary value, probably you would think what you give to the individuals is not enough. So of course, you know, people can come from different perspectives around this is expensive. But for us, even if you speak to the network partners, when you look at what comes out, like right now, for example, in Ghana and other countries in Africa, the fellows, what they've been able to do, none of the teachers have been able to do it. And it's not a competition between existing teachers and fellows, but other things that they've been able to invest and add value to the public sector systems and the existing teachers. So for me, you cannot put a value to that.
I fully agree with you in that I do believe that there's a multitude of efforts, including many of these network partners who believe in what they're doing in strengthening public education and systems. And so I fully endorse and congratulate you on that regard. Yukabeth, I come to you in terms of you're in Kenya. And as someone who was born in Kenya and a brother of yours, you know, I hear a lot of stories about how, you know, the Ministry of Education, as an example, for the rest of the year, there's no formal schooling. And then they move the targets a few times, and now they are expected to go to school, and now they're not, and so on and so on. What is happening in Kenya?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're in a situation where we are, first of all, dealing with something that is very new, something that is unprecedented, and we are dealing with a situation where Kenyans at home are also feeling very pressed with what has been happening over the past 6 months. Initially, there was an announcement that was made that schools were to open actually in October, but there was another announcement that was made over by the president to push it forward to January. I think right now we are thinking about opening institutions in a cascaded manner, bringing in the first, candidate classes in, and then after that working to cascade and see how we can bring in the rest of the schools. So this will happen starting January. It was supposed to happen in October, but the ministry feels and the presidency feels like we're not very well prepared. One thing I would say is I think we need many more local leaders thinking about how learning can continue, especially for underprivileged communities during this time. There are those who've been completely locked out of the interventions that have been put in place by the Teacher Service Commission and the ministry. And so Teach for Kenya is actually right now having those conversations with different people within the ministry to see how, even if we find ourselves in a situation where things are still unstable come January, how can we make sure that this population who are not able to be reached by the interventions that Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development and the ministry have put in place can continue to learn through our fellows and also through other community-based learning interventions that can be put in place. Yeah.
And so in many of these countries around, for example, in West Africa, we know about Rising Academies as an example that has used radio as a way of actually making sure education continues for those that go to government-run schools. What is happening on the ground in terms of for continuity of education, not in the private schools and the low-cost private school sector, but actually in the state school sector? I'd be keen to hear from you on that.
Yeah, so they have a TV channel that is specifically has been put there, Edu TV, on which teachers come in and they teach lessons, the entire day. We also have radio programs that have been going on. So there's a dedicated radio channel where students can go in and continue with their learning. There's a timetable that is provided. It has been posted at times in the newspaper. It's posted also on TV. There are also some local organizations who are trying to champion SMS learning for kids, especially in the homes where people don't have access to a single smartphone. So that is also something that is being championed. I've not so much seen the distribution of offline learning materials. This is a very resource-heavy initiative. It has been done more by the private sector than I've seen it being done at the at the upper level. They've been focusing on scaling this program and reaching as many Kenyans as possible, which is why they've used broadcast media. But there's lots, I would say that there's lots more to be done to reach, these homes where they don't have, as much as a single smartphone. So I would champion the SMS learning and also the distribution of offline learning materials in those areas.
What do you think the potential, actually, I'll ask Vongai and yourself, I'll go to Vongai first. What do you think the potential of an online school model is in Africa?
Yeah, that's a great question, but which is very difficult because at the moment, as you and I know, is that, there is more, it's not just a matter of putting an online school in Africa. There's so much, because most of the students in Africa, either they are living in households where A, there's no electricity, B, there's not even one person with a gadget. And if there is, normally it's parents who go to work during the day. And not only that, is that sometimes some of the children might not even be able to know how to operate, even in places where gadgets are put. So at the moment, it's an option, but it's too far off because there are so many complexities that would need to be addressed by both governments, private sector actors, and other NGOs that are working in this space. But I think it's almost wishful thinking as far as I'm concerned, because we are still far off as a continent. Of course, there are places where, like South Africa and other places where this could work straight away. However, as you know, Africa is not homogeneous. There are different places where you think, what, this would never work. But I think it's high time that people start investing into technology and other things, because now we know COVID, no one was ready. No one thought we would be where we are, but we are where we are now.
So one of my fondest memories of Kenya, Yukabeth, is last year, I came home after the ceremony of the Global Teacher Prize with Brother Peter Tabichi, and we accompanied him on a number of different things. And when we got to Nakuru, where in the locality, in the county that he's from, 20,000 young people showed up and literally created a logjam in terms of traffic to welcome him home. And that showed me the appetite of people celebrating teachers, and in particular him. And they were all shouting, Mwalimu, 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 which means teacher in Swahili. Do you see a change of perception, generally speaking, about the importance of teachers as a result of what we're going through currently?
Yes, absolutely. Because parents have been forced to step into that position. Older siblings have been forced to step into that position. And I've seen how difficult it is to, champion quality learning for a child. Also, in Africa, we've had many great leaders who were teachers. And now with the age of the internet and all this information that is available, people are able to do more research and learn about, great leaders who began their journey in the classroom. So definitely there's a change in perception. If you mention the name Peter Tabichi anywhere, people know it. We actually recruited him on to teach for Kenya as our global ambassador. And it's been amazing just watching people just look at his name and say, oh, you have this guy on your team, you guys must be championing, great stuff. So the teaching profession actually is continuing to, be dignified. And we're hoping that just by bringing, engineers into the classroom, bringing medical doctors, bringing people from diverse academic backgrounds into our fellowship program, and them dedicating 2 years of their life to go and, effect change using the classroom as their unit of change, that this will go a long way towards, ensuring that the teaching profession on the African continent remains dignified and people can see the power of what learning leadership through teaching can achieve for us as a people.
So my final question goes to Vongai, who looks after the entire Africa region and sees its growth. And one of the problems, whether you're in the civil society organization, the private sector, the government, we always face is one of leadership. And in your particular remit, your job is to make sure that your network partners, as you call them, really perform well, and you support them. But central to that must be, how do you select and how do you craft the CEO? Do you have a view on that? What makes a good CEO?
Okay, that's a good question around what makes a good CEO. There are so many things I could talk about, but if I'm to mention two, I think some of the best CEOs I've seen in the network and beyond is one, a deep personal conviction to the vision. You know, when people are so committed, because this work is not a mean feast, it's not a walk in the park, but those people who stay the whole course will have a deep conviction to the vision. And the second thing is people who are able to leverage relationships across different levels, like from working with the government, working with donors, working with schools. So those who are able to leverage and maximize on relationships, I think those for me are some of the two greatest characteristics of CEOs in this work. I would probably add something. Yeah, okay, yeah. I think those are the two greatest things that I would say.
So we had
I don't know, Vongai, are you having some trouble hearing? Are you able to hear? Okay.
Yukabeth, in terms of when Vongai was speaking about leadership,